The battle's inception. There had always been love, warmth, and laughter in the Duggar household. Every night ended with the gentle reverberation of songs about religion and family, and every morning started with prayer. They had been portrayed on TV for years, smiling, kind, and leading meaningful lives. The world saw the Duggars as ideal. They were joined in their heart and strong in their beliefs. However, one tiny soul was engaged in a secret conflict behind their happy faces. The youngest of them all, Josie Duggar, had always been the miracle child, premature, frail, but resilient enough to live. They all agreed that God had a unique plan for her, and she remained strong for years because of that belief. Now, however, that strength was being put to the test once more. Little things first, some bone discomfort, a little exhaustion, and a few episodes of vertigo. Josie would dismiss it, stating, "I think I just need more sleep, Mom. Perhaps I have been putting in too much labor." Michelle kissed her forehead and gave her a soft smile that only a mother can give. "All right, rest up, my love. My darling girl, you have always been strong." However, the agony persisted. It became quieter, harsher, and deeper. The mornings grew heavier and the nights longer. Her once bright laughter faded into gentle sighs. Josie sat in a blanket by her window one evening and gazed out at the last of the light. Her pale cheeks were touched by the sunset's orange hue. She said to herself in a whisper, "Lord, why am I so exhausted? Help me keep strong, please." Everything changed when the test results were released. The tone of the doctor's voice was heavy but calm, conveying a truth that nobody likes to hear. "I fear it's cancer." Phase 4. Like shattered glass, the words hung in the air. Michelle's mouth quivered. Jim Bob's hands gripped the chair's edge as he remained motionless. Josie's fingers twisted uncomfortably as she peered down, as though tightening her grip would help her unravel the pain. The room was silent. Softly, the clock ticked away. A portion of their reality started to crumble somewhere in that silence. Josie had trouble falling asleep that night. She listened to her own heartbeat, which was slow, brittle, and unsteady, while she lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. She reflected on the years she had been surrounded by her siblings, faith and laughter. Her parents, who had always believed in miracles, sprang to mind. Her cheeks were wet with tears. "I've seen you heal people, God," she said. "I've witnessed your amazing work. If this is your strategy, please assist me in accepting it." Michelle silently entered her room and took a seat next to her. She brushed her hair out of her face and whispered, "My baby, you're not alone. Together, we will fight this." Josie tried to appear courageous, but her grin was feeble. "I understand, Mom, but assure me that you will continue to grin if I ever become weary. Make a vow to maintain your faith." Michelle's heart broke into 1,000 fragments, but she nodded. Hospital visits became commonplace over the following few weeks. Josie was getting weaker every day after her chemotherapy rounds. The chunks of her long brown hair started to fall. She didn't cry because she didn't want other people to realize how hurt she was, not because she wasn't scared. When her siblings came to visit, they would bring her songs, flowers, and letters. Soft hymns and silent prayers filled the house. They all thought she would recover. They were forced to. Josie was sitting on a hospital bench outdoors one afternoon with a scarf over her head, and the sun peeking through the clouds. She grinned as she looked up. She found beauty in the environment despite her anguish, in the gentle breeze, in the birdsong, and in the fact that she was still alive. "Perhaps God isn't punishing me," she said. "Perhaps He is getting me ready for something bigger." Her illumination emanated from her faith. But there was fear behind each prayer. Every grin was accompanied with suffering, and a silent inquiry that no one dared to ask lurked behind every heartbeat. Is she going to make it? Every night, the Duggar family prayed for a miracle while holding hands. However, they all knew in their hearts that the fight was far from over. The battle for hope. The hospital has turned into a home away from home. The fragrance of medicine and silent grief filled the walls. A eerie song of time passing was produced by the rhythmic beeps of machines next to Josie's bed. Each morning started in the same manner. The nurse would whisper, smile softly, and check her vitals. "My dear, you're doing well today." However, Josie could see the anguish that lurked behind the warmth in her eyes. Her mother was always by her side. Every night, Michelle clutched her hand while whispering a prayer. "Give my baby another sunrise, please, Lord." Josie would occasionally wake up in the middle of the night to discover her mother sobbing quietly while hiding her face in a Bible. She would gently whisper, "Mom, don't cry for me. I'm not scared." Through her emotions, Michelle grinned and said, "Josie, you are my miracle. You have always been." But lately, it was more difficult to believe in miracles. The care was cruel. The agony persisted. She had lost her hair. She was now pale. Her once vibrant body had weakened, becoming a shadow of the young woman she once was. She smiled though, despite everything. She thanked the doctors, made jokes with the nurses, and prayed for the other patients who were suffering next to her. Her sister Jana paid her a visit one day. She brought a picture of them as children along with flowers. "Do you recall this?" she said with a gentle smile. "You could hardly walk because you were so small." Josie's eyes were watering as she gazed at the picture. "Yes, I do recall. To keep me from falling, you used to clutch my hand," Joy said. "I wish I could do that again now," in a tremulous voice. Josie gave a small smile. "You are already." There was silence in the room. The outer world appeared to pause for a time. Weeks passed. Months passed. Chemotherapy was not working. The doctors started talking more slowly and quietly, as if they were frightened of what they were saying. One afternoon, Jim Bob and Michelle sat outside the room. He sounded trembling. "Michelle, she's not getting better. What if this is how God is calling her home?" Michelle took his hand in hers. "No. I refuse to give up my faith. I am unable to. She's my baby," she said in a broken voice. "I must never lose her again." Josie was listening inside. Through the thin hospital walls, she could hear them. "Maybe they don't have to lose me. Maybe I'll just go home to a different place," she muttered, closing her eyes. Josie requested for a notebook that evening. She started writing letters to her parents, to each of her siblings, then to the entire family. She penned works about paradise, forgiveness, and love. As she typed, her hand shook, but her heart was at ease. She wrote to her parents, "You showed me love and taught me faith. Know that I will be waiting for you in a land devoid of sorrow, so don't be sad when I leave." She wrote to her siblings, "Never give up on the idea that God can transform suffering into something beautiful. Keep loving and laughing." Dawn was peering through the window by the time she was done. Outside, everything appeared to be tranquil. "It's a new day," she said with a smile. However, it was evident to all that the brightness in her eyes was waning. Slowly, gently, like sand through an open fingers, her strength was evaporating. She continued to grin, but her body was losing the battle. More than ever, her family prayed. However, heaven was paying attention, and occasionally, heaven's responses don't match what the heart desires to hear. The last days, the hospital room's air was different. Now it was more subdued, almost hallowed. Every visitor came in with shaky grins and teary eyes. The nurses moved gently, and the physicians spoke softly. Even though Josie's body was feeble, her spirit continued to light dimly, like the last candle in a room full of darkness. She was surrounded by her loved ones during the day. Her brothers occasionally played gentle guitar music as her sisters read her passages from the Bible. Every morning, her father would pray at her bedside and mutter, "If you must take her, Lord, please take her gently." Even though Josie's voice had become weak, her words were powerful. She declared to everyone that she was no longer terrified. "Don't consider this to be the end," she replied quietly. "See it as my way of returning home." Michelle's heart was aching, but she tried to smile. She felt the chill seeping through her daughter's fingers as she grasped her delicate hand. She muttered, "Josie, I don't know how to survive without you." Josie gave her a calm smile despite her weary eyes. "I already learned how to live a faith-filled life from you, Mom. Let me now show you how to use it to say farewell." Michelle nodded while sobbing and muttering prayers that trembled with love and suffering. The sky outside was painted with rose and gold one evening, a sunset that seemed almost too lovely to be true. Josie requested that she be shown the hospital garden. She sat in a wheelchair wrapped in blankets, gazing at the horizon and taking in the cool air. She murmured to Jana, who was standing next to her, "Look at that. Heaven appears to be opening its doors, doesn't it?" Joy bit her lip in an attempt to contain her tears. Please refrain from using such language. Josie gave a small smile. It's all right. I'm not afraid. I believe I'm just about ready. The slight aroma of flowers wafted through the wind as it brushed across her face. She briefly closed her eyes and prayed in a whisper, asking for serenity rather than healing. She invited everyone to assemble around her bed later that evening. One by one, her siblings arrived, bringing heartache and love into the tiny space. The air was filled with hushed sobbing, whispered prayers, and sniffles. After glancing at each of them, Josie added, "Make me a promise. Don't let my narrative end on a depressing note. Let it serve as a reminder that fear cannot overcome faith." Holding her hand tightly, Jinger bent over. "Josie, we will always remember you." Josie gave a quiet smile. "Remember only the light, and you don't need to remember me." Despite his best efforts, Jim Bob was unable to control his tears. "You've made us so proud," he muttered, kissing his daughter's forehead. "You have demonstrated to us what true strength looks like." Josie fell asleep that night as the family sat in the hospital room's dim light. Her heartbeat soft and her breathing languid. Michelle whispered, "I'm here, my love," while holding her hand the entire time. "Here I am." Hours went by. Josie opened her eyes for the final time shortly before dawn. As the first rays of the morning came through the window, she gave her mother a quiet grin and muttered, "Mom, I see the light, it's lovely." Then the room fell silent, her breathing slowed, and her eyes closed. Jim Bob put his arms around Michelle as she held her daughter's hand and sobbed softly. Only faith held them together through the shattering. No words could ease the sorrow. The light rose gently outside, illuminating the sky with the same shades of pink and gold that Josie had adored. Heaven seemed to be welcoming her home. The legacy and the farewell. The house was quiet the morning after Josie's death. The sound of her gentle chuckle, her brief prayers before supper, and the way she used to say, "I love you," before bed were all that were left on the walls that had once reverberated with laughter. Michelle held her daughter's favorite blanket when she sat on Josie's bed. There was still a hint of her scent, the aroma of sunshine and lavender. Whispering through her tears, she clasped it to her chest. "Thank you, God, for allowing me to love her, even for a brief moment." Jim Bob was standing at the window, gazing at the early morning light. He had changed as a person. Even though his faith had been shattered, he secretly sensed Josie's soft voice encouraging him to persevere. "You're home now, my little girl," he whispered. "You have completed your race." The funeral day arrived. The air was thick with sadness, and the sky was dismal. People from all over, including friends and family, came to bid farewell. Josie's favorite flowers were the delicate white lilies, which were all over the place. Joanna, Jinger, and Jill clutched each other close as Michelle walked behind the coffin, her palm pressed to her heart. They sensed that love, the same unseen thread, held them together even in sadness. The preacher murmured quietly as he spoke, "The tale of Josie Duggar is not one of melancholy. It is a tale of bravery, unwavering faith, and a small child who showed us that even on the darkest of nights, light can shine." "Not a single eye was dry," Michelle sobbed, her body shaking as the choir started singing Amazing Grace. Then she recalled Josie's final words. "Don't be depressed, Mom. I can see the light." And she gave a small smile through the tears. The family gathered beside her grave following the funeral. Whispers were carried through the trees by the gentle wind that lifted hair strands. On the grave, Jinger laid a little notebook that Josie had used to write her letters. Her words were inside. "Don't cry because I'm not here anymore. I'm happy because I survived. In the light, I'll be waiting for you." Michelle's voice broke as she whispered, touching the notebook. "Josie, you're still here. In every prayer, every day." Weeks went by. Although the pain persisted, strength, something lovely, started to blossom from it. The family began telling people about Josie and how, despite physical changes, her faith remained strong. Others who were struggling with anxiety and disease found hope in her remarks. Joanna started working as a volunteer at a hospital for kids. Jinger began writing a book about suffering for faith. In Josie's honor, Jim Bob established a modest community fund to support cancer patients' families. Additionally, Michelle whispered a prayer near Josie's picture every night. "My angel, I will see you again. I'll keep your light going until then." A few months later, the same warm, golden sunset that Josie cherished once again decorated the sky. The whole family gathered outdoors to witness it. Nobody said anything. They were not required to. The calm, the warmth, and the silent reassurance that Josie's spirit was still present were all felt by them. They pictured her grinning and talking on the wind somewhere in that bright horizon. "I'm at home. The darkness just serves to highlight the brightness, so don't be afraid of it." And the Duggar family at last realized as the day turned to night. Love never dies. Faith endures forever. Moreover, Josie's brightness would always be there. The hope and the healing. Although time has passed, sadness is not time-bound. Months passed, but some mornings still started with tears. The Duggar house was still quieter than it had been. A quiet that was both peaceful and painful. Josie left her room just as she found it. On the nightstand was her Bible. On the wall was her small cross. At the foot of the bed, folded neatly, was the blanket her mother had wrapped over her when she was in the hospital. Michelle would frequently stand in the doorway with her eyes sparkling and her hands clasped. "Good morning, my angel," she would murmur, as though Josie could still hear her. However, a precious thing had started to grow despite the loss: healing. The family got together at church one Sunday morning. Michelle took the stage in front of the congregation for the first time since Josie's death. Her eyes gleamed with silent strength, yet her voice faltered. She said, "We learned from our Josie that having faith isn't about having all of your prayers answered. It's about having faith in God, even when you don't fully comprehend His plan." Every act of love we give is a continuation of her story, which didn't finish with her final breath. With tears running down their faces, the congregation went silent. Everyone sensed Josie's spirit at that precise moment. Calm, radiant, and immortal. The family established the Josie Light Foundation, a non-profit organization devoted to supporting kids with cancer. A few months later, Michelle posted the following on the website: "We hope to save others through her story, even though we were unable to save our daughter." The charity turned into a beacon of hope. Parents, survivors, and others who had been inspired by the Duggar family's courage started sending letters from all over the world. One letter was read: "Josie's tale gave me the strength to fight once more. I appreciate you sharing her light." Another person stated, "I was able to believe in something greater than suffering because of her faith." At night, Michelle would frequently read the letters out loud. It seemed as though Josie was speaking from the heart she had touched with each word. The family visited her grave on the anniversary of her death. Her favorite flowers, white lilies, were abundant in the garden. The golden sunset resembled the one she had dubbed Heaven's Doorway. "I still feel her near me," said Jana in a whisper. "She never really left," Jinger said with a gentle smile and a nod. As Jim Bob prayed, the whole family stood hand in hand. "Thank you, Lord, for allowing us to love her. And we are grateful that she taught us the meaning of true faith." The breeze increased as the prayer concluded. It was warm, soft, and almost familiar. For a moment, Michelle believed she heard Josie laughing in the breeze as she looked up. She grinned and closed her eyes. The pain in her heart changed, but it didn't go away. It became into genuine, eternal love. Michelle wrote in her journal that evening, "Love that has nowhere to go is grief. However, I've discovered that the agony subsides when you show that love to others." Josie's light never went out. Instead, it found new homes in other people's hearts. There were many stars in the sky outside. One of them was more radiant than the others, as though heaven had lit a candle just for her. Even if her earthly journey was over, Josie's light would always be there to lead them, because the smallest flame can occasionally burn the longest. And often the most profound impression is left by the youngest soul. The life of Josie Duggar was brief. Her light, however, would never go out.